The Latin League was a confederation of about 30 villages and tribes in the region of Latium near ancient Rome. The purpose of this alliance was mutual defense against neighboring peoples, particularly the Etruscans, Volsci, and Equi. The relationship between Rome and the Latin League was a complex and evolved over centuries, often marked by cooperation and conflicts. The war between Rome and the Latin League in 5th century BCE was a pivotal role in Roman rise to power and dominance in the region. This detailed account will explore the origin, major conflict, key battles, and political maneuvers of this war. The Latin League was formed around 7th century BCE as a response to growing threat from neighboring regions. The member cities of the league included Alba Longa, Aricia, Lavinium, and Tusculum, among others. These cities shared a common cultural and religious ties, worshipping gods such as Jupiter Latarius, whose sanctuary on the Mons Albanus served as a central religious site for the League. The League's primary objective was a mutual defense and protection of their shared interest. This confederation allowed the member cities to pool their resources and military strength, presenting a united front against external threats. However, the League was not a centralized state, but rather a loose association of autonomous cities, each with its own leadership and interest. Rome's relationship with Latin League was initially cooperative. Rome itself was a Latin city, and its early kings such as Romulus, Numa Pompilius, and Tullus Hostilius maintained friendly relations with the League. The cities often engaged in trade, intermarriages, and religious ceremonies together. However, as Rome grew in power and ambition, tension began to surface. Rome's strategic location on Tiber River and its expanding population made it a significant player in the region. The turning point in Rome's relationship with the Latin League came during the reign of Roman king Tarquinius Superbus, the last Rome's 7th king. By the way, if you haven't watched our previous videos on Roman Empire, watch it in the end. In 509 BCE, the Romans overthrew Tarquinius Superbus and established a Roman Republic. This political revolution had significant repercussions for Rome's relationship with the Latin League. The ousted king sought refuge with the Etruscan city of Colosseum and later with the Latin League, relying to support to reclaim his throne. The Latins, viewing Rome's newfound republicism with suspicion and influenced by the deposed king, saw an opportunity to reassert their dominance over Rome. This led to the first major conflict between the Roman Republic and the Latin League, the Battle of Lake Regillus. The Battle of Lake Regillus, fought around 496 BCE, was a decisive engagement between Rome and the Latin League. According to Roman tradition, the battle took place near the lake in Latium, though the exact location is uncertain. The Latin League, under the command of Tarquinius Superbus and the Latin dictator Octavius Mamilius, sought to defeat the nascent Roman Republic and restore the monarchy. The Roman forces led by the consuls Aulus Postumius Albus and Titus Abutius Alva faced a formidable enemy. The battle was fiercely contested, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Roman sources credit the intervention of the god Castor and Pollux, who supposedly appeared on the battlefield, at turning the tide for Rome's favor. The Romans ultimately emerged victorious, solidifying their control over the Latin region and ending Tarquinius Superbus' ambition. The Roman victory at Lake Regillus had far-reaching consequences. The Latin League was forced to accept Roman hegemony, resulting in the Photius Cassinium Treaty of Cassius in 493 BCE. This treaty, named after Roman consul Spurius Cassius, established a mutual defense pact between Rome and the Latin League. The terms of the treaty were mutual defense against external enemies, equal division of spoils of war between Rome and the Latin League. No individual city within the League could make war or peace without the consent of the whole League, including Rome. This treaty effectively made Rome the leading power within the Latin League, though it preserved a degree of autonomy for the member cities. The peace established by the Photius Cassinium was not permanent. As Rome continued to expand its influence and territory, tensions with the Latin League resurfaced. Several factors contributed to the renewed hostilities. Rome's aggressive expansionist policies and its increasing dominance in the Latium created resentment among other Latin cities. Rome's annexation of territories and the establishment of colonies in the formerly Latin-controlled areas threatened the independence of the Latin League's member. Economic competition between Rome and the Latin cities also fueled tensions. The control of trade routes, agricultural lands, and the resources became a continuous issue. Leading to skirmishes and disputes. Ambitious leaders with both Rome and the Latin League sought to assert their dominance. Rome's consuls and military commanders aimed to expand Rome's influence, while the Latin leader sought to preserve their autonomy and challenge Roman supremacy. During the mid-5th century, the Latin League and Rome found themselves facing common enemy in the Aequi and Volsci, two warlike tribes from the central Apennines. These tribes frequently raided Latin and Roman territories, posing a significant threat to the region's stability. In response to these threats, Roman and the Latin League occasionally set aside their differences and cooperated militarily. The wars against Aequi and Volsci were marked by a series of campaign and battle, including notable engagements. One of the most famous battles during this period was the Battle of Mount Algidus, where the Roman dictator Lucius Quintius Cincinnatus famously rescued a besieged Roman army. The Romans, along with their Latin allies, managed to defeat the Aequi and lift the siege. Rome and the Latin League engaged in numerous campaigns against the Aequi and Volsci. These wars were characterized by a mix of victories and setbacks, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. While these joint military efforts against common enemy helped to temporarily stabilize the region, they did little to resolve the underlying tension between Rome and the Latin League. As you know from our previous video that there was a conflict in the 5th century between plebeians and the patricians. The plebeian struggle for political and social rights had a profound impact on Rome's domestic and foreign policies. The conflict of order was a prolonged social struggle between the plebeians and the patricians, lasting from the early 5th century BC to the early 3rd century BC. The plebeians sought greater political representation, economic relief, and legal protection against patricians' abuse. One of the key outcome of the struggle was the establishment of 12 Table, Rome's first codified set of laws. The 12 Table aimed to provide greater legal transparency and fairness, addressing some sort of plebeians' grievances. The plebeian struggle had also led to military reforms. Plebeians, who formed the backbone of the Roman army, demanded greater recognition and reward for their service. These reforms strengthened the Roman military but also highlight the need for Rome to secure its dominance over the Latin League to ensure internal stability. In the mid-5th century BC saw a resurgence of hostilities between Rome and the Latin League. One of the significant conflicts during this period was the Battle of Corbuo, which took place around 446 BC. The exact details of the battle are unclear, but it was a key engagement between Roman and Latin forces. The Latin League, frustrated by Rome's growing dominance and encroachment on the territories, sought to reassert their independence. The Romans, determined to maintain their hegemony, responded with force. The battle resulted in a Roman victory, further solidifying Rome's control over Latin cities. The fall of the Etruscan city of Veii in 396 BC marked a turning point in Rome's relationship with the Latin League. Veii, located just 16 kilometers north to Rome, was one of the Rome's most formidable rivals. The Roman siege of Veii lasted for several years and culminated in the city's capture and destruction. The conquest of Veii greatly expanded Roman territory and resources. The Rome gained control of valuable agricultural lands and strategic position, enhancing their dominance in the region. The Latin League, already weakened by internal divisions and Roman pressure, found it increasingly difficult to challenge Rome's supremacy. The fall of Veii underscored Rome's military power and further demoralized the Latin cities. With Veii's fall, Rome's influence in Latium and beyond continued to grow. The Latin League's ability to resist Roman domination was further diminished, setting the stage for future conflict and eventual Roman consolidation. And the final and the most decisive conflict between Rome and the Latin League occurred in the late 4th century, culminating in Latin War, 340 BC. While this conflict technically falls outside the scope of 5th century, it represents the culmination of a long-standing tension and hostility between Rome and Latin League. The cause of the Latin War were multifaceted. The Latin cities, frustrated by their subordinate status and Roman dominance, sought to reassert their independence. Rome, on the other hand, was determined to fully integrate the Latin cities into its expandable republic. The Latin War saw several major battles, including the Battle of Vesuvius and the Battle of Tryphanum. These battles were characterized by intense combat and significant casualties on both sides. Rome ultimately emerged victorious in the Latin War. The consequences of this victory were far-reaching. The Latin League was dissolved, and the Latin cities were either incorporated into Roman states as municipalities or granted limited autonomy under Roman oversight. The dissolution of Latin League marked the end of the significant organized resistance to Roman dominance in Latium. Rome's policy of integrating conquered people into states structured allowed for greater stability and expansion. This is it for today's video, and if you want to watch more videos and more content on Roman Empire, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Until then, Inspireer, signing off.